Hello and welcome back to the channel and a final five for the 2K21 routing challenge, which first of all, apologies this has taken so long to make. The reasons have been multiple. The start of term for me was extremely busy, the new game then dropped, I got distracted with other things, and then when I did come to start doing these videos, my computer upgraded to Windows 11 and suddenly my recording software stopped. So there's a number of reasons, but also partly it's just something I put on the back burner and always meant to get back to. So you remember the plot that we had? We had this linksy kind of plot with lots of dunes, awkward dimensions, and you had to work your way around it as best you possibly could. We're going to look at the final five for this, which are they are really really good, and I would say better than what I came up with. So hopefully you enjoy. So first up, we have a course routed by Rio Saw, who's someone I don't know particularly well, but this one, when I saw it, was really interesting. What we're going to do with the top five is we're going to quickly fly around them so that you can see how they did everything rather than just highlights. So it started in the middle, and the first hole was kind of this longish par five playing out to a cool green site up on a plateau. Second, I think, then headed up into this crater, maybe a little bit abrupt in that we don't use that big landform again, and you then have to walk out and do this, but it's a cool feature to use. Three worked its way down here to another really nice green site with, although there's lots of dunes, this part's really open, which I thought was carefully done. Embrace blindness on four, and again to a good little green site here. Five was a par three that plays back down this way. We then had six, so we had a back-to-back par threes, but we had long followed by short and over a ravine versus down relatively flat land. So I thought that worked really nicely. One thing I really appreciated with this was like kind of came back to the clubhouse on 6, 12, and 18, which is really hard to do. Maybe it was a lucky accident, but it works really nicely. Crosses the burn for 7, which is a par 4 playing to kind of a flattish green site. 8 then works this dog leg around to another bowl. If I had a secondary critique, I've got three on this. Probably maybe overused bowls just a touch. Nines are Dell kind of par three. Um, and 10, you get this awesome view of the rock and you're playing to that rumpled fairway. But this is a good way of using this land and did it in a slightly different angle to lots of other people and meets back with fourth green. Then 11, we hopped over to here. So again, nice understated kind of green side there. 12 goes back in the other direction, short par four. Um, Possibly, I mean, that would be one you'd have to work with to put some risk reward into. There's no natural hazard for a drivable par four. 13, we have to get back over that ridge again, so play blind, and then a short approach to. I mean, the green site's more just perched over the burn, which we like. We hadn't done that yet. 14 then plays back in the other direction. Another short par four, potentially a double green with 6. 15 was a cool one, so playing over the diagonal dune ridge again. Then to this lovely green site, which is always one of my favourites on here. 16 par 3 plays up to here. And the second back to back set of par 3s, I think, was where my third issue came in. That is what prevented this getting into top 4, probably, which was 17 was kind of an afterthought. Like, it is a cool site for a par 3, but it doesn't really link with 16 and 18. And when you've already done the back to back par 3s once, I don't think you do it necessarily again. The 18 then plays back down over that diagonal ridgeline and up to a kind of plateau green. There's loads to like, explored loads of the plot, kind of went both sides on both nines, which was really cool, and just tied together really well. Lots of parallel fairways, but done in a really thoughtful, tasteful way. Coming in at 4, we have RJ Wils 30, who we all know is probably the best designer in the game, I would argue. And if anyone could make quirky land movement work and produce a really fun routing, it was going to be him. Now, this one's a little low compared to what you might expect, partly because I think there's some par issues. On the first hole, we had a par 5, which was a short par 5 tucked in behind this 11-ish mound. And again, good little area to use, first off. Second was this plateau green. The crux of this challenge really was there were so many cool green sites. It was how you could tie them together in a jigsaw puzzle way. And this was one that a lot of people used. I think it works really nicely here. Now, 3 has probably the coolest tee shot sightline in the contest, I would say. I just love the way the creek bends from this angle, burn rather. And I think this is one that was probably meant to be a long par 4, would be my guess, because it's a very open approach, but it's come across as a par 5, which then means that when 4 is a par 5, we've had 3 par 5 in the first 4 holes, and I think 4 in the first 6 eventually. This one, more a conventional par 5, you hug the side, and you kind of get a view, or you play blind from there for your third shot. Should also be noted that Rob actually put in splines for this as well, which makes deciphering it a lot easier. An awesome par 3 just going uphill, which is a great little connector hole, which takes us to 6, which is another par 5. I love par 5s as much as the next, but 4 and 6 is probably a little too much. This one works its way to the base of that dune, and then you tee off from above it, which is a good way of getting a green and tee in very close proximity safely. At 7, we're playing up to the corner of the plot. This kind of reminds me of the 4th at Rye, with this kind of runway fairway that you either hit or you're off the side massively. And a lovely green site between this shoulder and the runoff on this side. 8, we head up into that cauldron, and then 9, we go really wild and we head on down. Not the only person to do this. 10, we go around the coast, again similar to what a couple of other people have done, and you'll see others later in the video that do exactly the same. Awesome green site. This is one that I'd wanted people to find as well. 11, we've got this short par 4 playing into that benched green site that you can imagine might be kind of a narrow green angled away from the player, so you really want to control distance. 12 is a fun little hole just squeezed in on the shoreline, playing down to here. Quite a long green for this one, so it could be short, could be long, depending on pin position. It's a good way of varying it. We then go to 13, which is par 4 playing out this way and towards that little cauldron in the dunes. So Rob, probably more than any other, found lots of the green sites I was trying to make, which is always fun. And then also came back at it the other side from 16. So went up here for 14, which is, I would say, a transition hole, but it gets a really good green side just the other side of that spine, and a nice use of the valley to then work your way back up. 15 is another kind of cauldron par 3, so a bit of a dell hole working in here. You probably need some land movement on that. We then play up from here to 16, which is the par 5. Again, some really rumpled land here, which of all designers, he could make work, but it's pretty wild, and it's not necessarily where you'd root a golf hole for your second shot there, into a green that would probably again need some work. We nitpick. 17, we then have this kind of reverse camber sort of fairway towards a green that's somewhere around here. And then 18 takes us home over the burn with a reachable par 5, which is a nice way to finish. So there's loads of really cool stuff on here, and I think had he had maybe another 20 minutes, this probably could have won the whole thing, but that's where we're at. Coming at third place, we have Pro Petro, and his started out on completely the other side of the plot. So the clubhouse would have been around about here, starting in the middle, which means that you can work back along the coastline both ways. So his first hole was a mid to long par 4, but big sweeping fairway, nice big open views and huge corridors for this one, and playing to a really cool plateau green site with a dip in front of it. Second, then worked back up the coastline this way as a par 5. Again, found a really nice green site and kind of didn't stray too close to the coast, which was wise given the way this land was. Really broken land in the approach or layup area. The third then had a lovely little par 3 just across the creek. That works nicely, and again in a bowl, which befits the length of the hole. The fourth, we hit some blind areas, short par 4, so the blind approach to a really wide fairway would make a lot of sense, and a green just at the base of this dune, but danger if you went too far left. The fifth, we hit over the burn. Now the burn came in, I believe, kind of roundabout driver area, so would present you with a dilemma off the tee as to whether you try to carry it or laid up, or it's how close do you get in order to leave a short approach into a green that's kind of propped up. A short par 3 in the little saddle was really nice. That's a different sort of green site, and you can see working really well. 7 was kind of a dogleg playing down towards the coast again, and a long par 5. Well, short par 5 here. I was going to say long par 4. But again, you could see that would be a kind of really cool ground for a running approach. Lots of flat land around this part, which to me always meant like use a long shot to make the most of that. We then had a drive ball, potentially par 4, with water long and to the right, so very dangerous. But you could see how there's loads of generous layup area if you want to play away from it. envisaged like a green angled this way. Ninth, kind of another shorter par 4, but very different with the green side tucked over that dune. And then 10, again, we've got a second short par 3, but this one works really nicely. I think par 3 length could have maybe been a bit different to 6, but they play in different directions, so works well. 11 then follows on straight from the back, and you've got the village down this left-hand side. This one's a long par 4, which works after the short wedge shot approach on the previous hole. Pretty nicely. You then kind of run parallel to 1 and you hit 12, so you'd seen this bit of fairway already. Really good green site here, and one that I'm glad that you found. So this one, par 5, dangerous approach would make sense, but you've got loads of layup room potentially down here. 13 is a short par 4 again. This plot kind of dictated you need those to a flat green site. 14 plays back up. 184 is a good length given the previous par 3 lengths we've had. Gets us back to, again, close to the clubhouse site. 15 works back out again, and we've got another good saddle green site, which we've seen a few times. 16 plays up to here into the dunes. 17 teeing off them was a really dramatic hole, and we've got a road in play as well. Probably not where your drive would land, but maybe. And again, a short par 5, so laying back would make sense. And I think this is where the village was going to be as well, so you play back through that. And then finished on a 180 yard par 3. I think if we're really nitpicking, the par 3 distances could be a little bit more varied, but otherwise this was a fun routing that kind of traversed the same. And what I liked about this one was it brought you back to the same sorts of views playing down this way quite often. So you really went across the plot where there wasn't much width, but did so in quite an interesting way. Coming in at second was Matty from Canada, who immediately blocked off loads of the plot and decided not to use any of this and was going to put the village here, which further limited an already tight plot. What I liked that Matty did was really just bought into the quirk of the plot and just went, well, this is how they might have done it way back when. And you'll see some of that with how he routed this. So it opens with a par 5, which is very similar to how a lot of people started going down this part here. And straight away on 2, we've got a crossing tee shot, which would have worked just fine. So you imagine people would hit this way and hit this way. They can both see each other. They know when to walk. So although it looks like something we can't do, in reality, you see this on Scottish links courses from way back when. Is it ideal? Probably not, but it's a good way to get out of a tight corner. So 2, short par 3 that plays up to here and gets you across and away from the coast. 3, we then had a mid-length par 4 playing to kind of a flatter green site, but with an interesting depression short of it, which is a good way to use a tough landform. 4 then plays to this little shelf green and drivable potentially, but you can see all of the trouble that would be awaiting you if you didn't, and you could see how you could allow a layup zone down the length of the green here. At 5, we've got another short par 4 playing up towards here. We have another short par 4 on 6, and I think the thing differentiating this and the winner was the winner I think really stood out for me, but also short par 4s were a bit overused potentially here, although it's the sort of course that would really, you could see buying into that as an idea. Again, using that cauldron that we've seen others use, and the same as we saw with RJ Wils going down here for 7. This short par 3 again down here and out here for 8. So a lot of similarities with that 3-hole stretch. 9 then works up and towards the base of the dune, and we have another crossing tee shot, but again makes sense. I really liked 9 actually for the use of playing back into the base of a dune, which is a cool way to remind yourself of a key feature. 10 is a par 3. If you are going to do a crossing tee shot, a par 3 is probably the best one to do it on. Works down towards some flatter land, 180 odd, so longer than ones we've had so far. We then play through this valley on 11, which works really nicely. It gets us all the way out to here on a long par 4, probably the only one so far. Another crossing tee shot on 12 and 13. This was the point where potentially you've done this one too many times. Again, at this stage, we are nitpicking, but a cool dell hole to a blind green, and you could see how you'd be watching the people down here when you're teeing off on 13. So again, I think it works. Another very short par 4 with a very narrow green here. You can see that we're building a very quirky short course here. 14 works back. Another short par 4 with death this way. 15, all world par 3, which you wouldn't sacrifice for anything. Again, it's very short, common theme with this course, but works nicely. We then would have a little walk around here, which we don't mind. Fry's Head does something very similar. 16, we play down here for kind of a mid-length par 4, long par 4 for this course. We then had a long par 3 up to 17, and we work our way back out for another mid-length par 4 on 18. Now, if memory serves, I don't know if there was a single par 5 on the course. There was the opening hole, which kind of akin to Rye, that's how that does it. Very quirky course, 2,700 yards on the back, but fully embraced the quirk and got a really unique and interesting golf holes out of this plot, which I think is what you wanted to do from this contest. It's how could you use the plot to its maximum? This would be a course unlike pretty much any other in the game, which for me is a huge win in what we were looking for. So I really enjoyed this one, despite the fact that there will be people saying, oh, it doesn't fit this box that we're used to. I think that was part of its charm. And so to our winner, from the quirky, with Matty from Canada's very short course, to the just absolutely perfect and kind of conventional. This is from CSU Golfer 60, aka Dario Logan, who produced a routing that was just mind blowing. And when we go around it, you'll see why. He managed to go around all of the big features in such, I would just say, perfect usage of them without being too wild, producing a golf course that just works. And to do that in the time limit given was just outstanding. For someone who's typically used to parkland golf as well, this really did blow my mind. So it opens with a par 5 along flattish land. Like you can see how this would easily introduce you. Goes over the big feature on 2, and again, relatively flattish land, good green sites. Potentially double with 5, but wouldn't necessarily need to be. We then, where did we go next? 3, we have a little walk around here, but they're both tees, so it works. Hole 3, longish par 3, but again, big plateau. You could see that working definitely. The 4th works up to the top, and again, finds a nice little bowl this time. So we've worked up to the far end of the property. This would be, I presume, where he would use his village. 5, we hit over the broken ground, and he did this really well. Anytime you're traversing the broken ground, it was often on the tee shot, and work back up to here. 6, we hit off this central part, it's par 5, hitting down and then hitting up, and you've got again a green you can see with death long, but a clear plateau on which you'd put it. 7, we go back down here, little hint of a dell sort of green, but short par 3. You could see the flag, but you could see how it could also be tucked in behind the mound. So buying into little bits of quirk, but doing so in a very sensible way. 8 works its way back here, and again you hit up to kind of a plateau with a shorter iron, and then 9 takes us back to the clubhouse on a short par 4. Now, the fact that we also worked back to the clubhouse is something that was incredibly impressive, because I didn't think anyone would be able to do that. Nor did you have to, but 10 was very similar to one hole that I used on mine, so short par 4 just to the other side of here, and I think works really nicely with that land, and it's a good green site. Then hops up to the top of the dune, gives us a view of the beach. We go down here, and then another really good green site on a par 5. 12, awesome par 3 that I don't think anyone else quite found. There were ones that were around about here, but not quite in this direction. 13, we then head up to the top of the dunes, just walk back, and you've got a par 4 working down to this. I think this is probably one of my lesser favourite green sites on this course. It's just on a little bit of a spine, but we work with it. 14, we then hit a long par 3 up towards the top and used his par 3s really well as transition holes. 15, works down here, another short par 4. Again, this course kind of required that with the dimensions. You can see that working nicely. 16, again, short par 4 working here. Similar to Matty's, like we've ended up with 3 short par 4s, and if I were critiquing one aspect of this, I might have taken it further this way and then worked with longer holes down here, but it's also kind of a me thing. 17 has that great green site that a number of others have used. And then 18, we hit over the burn and then back towards the clubhouse on a kind of middlish par 4. What I thought this one did so well was just how simple and effective it was. It kind of divided the front 9 was down this half of the plot and just worked out that way, and then the back 9 worked out this way. And when you look at really, really good routings, there's often a very simple premise at the core of them. I think this one did that so well as a result. So that for me was the most. I guess it's all totally arbitrary. What I think doesn't really matter, but for me that was the most impressive of all of them because it just worked around all of these key features really nicely. Did it necessarily bind them and get some of the dramatic highs that others did? Probably not. But as a routing, I thought this was the most impressive. Hopefully, this has been interesting and long overdue. See you again soon.